Ottawa refuses to appoint a mediator in the postal strike.
The collective bargaining right now is between the two parties.
A new law will allow suspected war criminals to be tried in Canada.
Anyone who is charged under this provision will have defenses that are available now.
Private firms want a bigger slice of the garbage business in Winnipeg. 24 Hours with Sandra Lewis, Mike McCourt, and the 24 Hours News team, bringing you news, weather, and sports.
Good evening. The federal government has decided not to name a mediator in the letter carriers strike. The announcement by the Labor Minister, Pierre Cadieux, came as the strike entered its second week.
The collective bargaining right now is between the two parties, between Canada Post and the union representing those employees, and they have the responsibility to come to a settlement and not to automatically just renounce their responsibility and put the burden on a third party.
But even as Cadieux was keeping his distance from this dispute, a backbench Tory MP in charge of a committee on government services was releasing a report that recommends the right to strike be taken away from all postal workers.
So we're saying maybe this could be avoided with a different approach. Make it an essential service and also have Canada Post do its utmost to deliver the mail.
It is an idea that is unacceptable to the union.
They don't care when it's delivered, when it's running properly, so why should they care when a strike is involved and make it essential only on those days when it's interrupted by strike?
And even the chief negotiator for the post office doesn't like it.
I don't know what the corporate position would be on removing the right to strike. Certainly as a labor negotiator, I don't believe in removing the right to strike.
Neither side in this dispute expected a committee report on the right to strike, but both sides did expect they'd be assigned a mediator today. Instead, the government is playing a risky game, trying to force concessions publicly from both sides before even considering whether to step in to try to end this strike. Anna Maria Tremonti, CBC News, Ottawa.
There was increased violence on postal picket lines throughout Winnipeg today as Canada Post tried to deliver mail using secret warehouses as depots. 5 striking letter carriers were arrested, bringing the total number arrested since the strike began to 15. Gloria Lowen is standing by at the main post office downtown. Gloria, what's the situation down there right at the moment?
Well, Mike, the union and police on this line have apparently struck a deal. If a delivery truck pulls up, a picket captain is allowed to talk to the driver to try and convince him not to cross their line. If the driver chooses to go through, the police clear a path for him. That seems to have calmed things down. There weren't any confrontations on this line between police and picketers today. That was not the case in the rest of the city on other lines. In fact, we were here on this line at 6 o'clock this morning when picketers were sent out to a warehouse on Border Street in Fort Garry. The union had learned that replacement workers were being sent there to pick up sorted mail and deliver it.
You guys are going to all end up on welfare before
well, maybe we'll all end up fucking on the streets then.
The replacement workers, who, according to the union, are being paid anywhere from $150 to $250 a day, stood by waiting for mail to be put in taxis. The meters in the cabs had been turned on and were running up quite a tab. One taxi driver said Canada Post had hired 60 cabs to help deliver the mail. As each taxi pulled out, strikers attacked. At first, it was just eggs. Later, it was all-out attack. That taxi continued on, but this one didn't. A rock had been thrown through the window. That resulted in the arrest of a striking letter carrier. The arrests continued at another warehouse on Jarvis and Dufferin, where once again replacement workers stood by waiting to go to work. Here, eggs were brought in by the trayful and put to use.
Come on! Come on, let's get this picket line going! Come on!
In all, 3 picketers were arrested here. Canada Post wouldn't confirm or deny that this warehouse is being used to sort mail, but the union says Canada Post's strategy is to sort the mail in a temporary location at 1200 Fife, then send it out to the 2 warehouses, where it is sorted further and distributed for general delivery. The union says violence against replacement workers will continue until Canada Post agrees to reinstate the expired contract. It says the corporation wants to take away concessions gained in previous negotiations.
They're trying to take our lunch away from us. You know, we're walking out in the street in 30 below weather in the wintertime, and here they're going to take our lunch away. They're going to say, you eat your lunch out on the walk.
Canada Post says it will continue to do whatever is required to get the mail through. It says replacement workers are part of that strategy, and the increased cost of rerouting the mail is justified by the economic damage that could result from an all-out letter carrier strike.
So far, Canada Post hasn't issued any statement on how much mail was delivered today, which residential areas actually received service. But the letter carriers seem to feel that their strike is stopping mail. It has to some degree, Mike, as you saw that taxi cab stopped, but there's really no indication officially from Canada Post on what effect the strike is having on mail delivery.
And just for clarification, Gloria, does the union insist that all of the mail has been stopped because of the picket lines, or do they acknowledge that some might be getting through?
They are acknowledging that some is getting through. I think that their efforts are intended mainly to slow the mail down.
And one more question. How long are the picket lines going to stay up in Winnipeg?
Well, in other cities that have been hit with the rotating strike, it's lasted 48 hours. And that, yesterday, at least, was the indication from the union. But at this point, they are apparently still talking to National Strike Headquarters to determine that, Mike.
Gloria, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Ottawa has taken aim at suspected war criminals living in Canada.
Fell this morning, although it is not good news. The Montreal Alouettes are expected to announce today the team is folding. Dan Matheson will have all the sports and wake-up weather across the country in just a moment. But first, here's Terrell Joe with the morning news.
Thank you, Nancy. Good morning. Both sides in the postal strike have been told to get back to the bargaining table. Labour Minister Pierre Cadieux told Canada Post and the Letter Carriers Union he wants to see some progress before a mediator gets involved. Mark Sickstrom reports.
Both Canada Post and the Letter Carriers wanted a mediator, but after 4 days of thought, the Labour Minister said no.
I don't believe that at this point the parties have shown enough movement to warrant the appointment of a mediator.
The Letter Carriers say the minister's decision is irresponsible and politically motivated.
He's been overruled by the cabinet.
Although the government says it has no intention of ordering the letter carriers back to work, a Conservative-dominated committee has just issued a report calling for the post office to be declared an essential service. Committee members say the last major postal strike cost Canadian businesses $3 billion, and so a different method must be found to settle disputes.
So business cannot survive with another strike, and we have to declare Canada Post an essential service as far as I'm concerned.
But it's unlikely the federal government will resort to legislation until such time as Postal Service comes to a complete halt or the negotiations break down entirely. And both Canada Post and the union are saying that bargaining could resume within 24 hours. Mark Sickstrom, CTV News, Ottawa.
More than 4,000 workers